Welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Murrell, proudly sponsored by Super Resin. This week's special guests are Rachel Halliwell and her sister Clare. In this deeply personal episode, they join me to share their family story. We talk about the life and loss of Rachel's daughter Samina and the emotional journey that's followed. This is a raw and honest conversation that shines a light on the pain families go through behind closed doors. Thanks for listening and watching this episode.
There's a fine line between being sane and going insane. And if I think about it, I'm going to go over that line and I'll never come back.
And she said, "Did you ever say to Semina, I believe you?" He went, "No."
Welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Murrell. And this week's special guest is Rachel Halliwell and Clare. I'm really looking forward to you sharing the Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Thanks very much for coming over to Runcorn and
Thank you.
coming to share it. Thank you very much, Rachel and Clare. Been speaking to you for a while. Rachel, your story, I came across on social media, and I know we just had a little chat beforehand, and you know, it's every mother's nightmare losing a child, but to the circumstances of your beautiful daughter Samina, 12 years of age, you know, no parent should ever have to go through that. And you know, talking about Samina, why she took her own life and the failings by certain authorities, Merseyside police and others. So I just want to say, you know, thank you for coming on the podcast. You know, thank you very much for coming on, and I know it's going to be tough, but thank you for agreeing to come on.
Thank you.
And obviously your sister Clare. But look, I just want to start, Rachel, you know, from where you're from, where you grew up, family life and school life was like.
Well, I grew up in Southport. I just got my sister. Very happy childhood. Went to St Patrick's Primary School, then on to Christ the King High School. Left there, started hairdressing at Headlines in Southport. And after that, I moved to London and I worked in London for 5 years. And then after that, I moved to Cyprus, where I met my husband, now my ex-husband.
Right. Yeah, I know, you obviously with your husband, you have children, you had
Three
children.
children.
Three
yeah.
children, 2 boys and one daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was family life like for you all?
For my marriage wasn't very good at all. So I came back to Southport and I raised the children on my own. When I say on my own, as a single parent, but you know, I had my parents and I had my sister, and we are a very, very close family. So I moved in with my parents. I was pregnant with Semina, so she was born in Southport. They had a really happy childhood. We had really good times, you know, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
They didn't want for anything, did they?
no, they never wanted for anything.
Yeah.
They were spoiled, weren't they?
Well, that's
Yeah.
what you do. That's what you do, though, isn't it, with your kids? You try
do.
and give them what you can. You know, when growing up as a, you know, when there's a couple of kids in the house and it's fun and games and there's probably
Yeah, but they had the best of everything.
yeah.
You know, I mean, Claire took them to Toys R Us once.
For their half-year birthday.
Yes,
Because their
half-year
birthday apparently was too close to Christmas for it to be feeling fair. So they had to have a half-year birthday in the summer.
And what did they get?
Oh, I got fleeced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Semina was the worst. She saw a Beetle convertible electric car that you literally sat in and somebody else could sit in as well. Black with pink seats. And convinced me to buy that.
Auntie Claire bought it that then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, it's stuff like that where you know, remember the good times, the funny times, and you know, it's like anything, you know, as a family, it's them times where you reminisce and you think about, you know, the funny times and, you know, Claire getting fleeced at the Toys R Us and stuff like that. And, you know, what was school like for them? What was school?
Oh, the schooling. Oh, it was the best years of their lives.
Mm.
When they went to St Patrick's School, junior school, both Rafi and Samina. Oh, it was just amazing. You know, the friendship groups, there were beautiful friends, big friendship groups. The teachers loved them both. They did really well and they were really happy. really happy at St Patrick's School. I have to say it was probably the best primary school in Southport.
Yeah.
And that's what you remember. It was like the good times of like,
Yeah.
and it's that time is when I think it's for any kids when they go into secondary school. Are they going to adapt and stuff? And you think, oh, you know, and you think because they're doing so well and they're friends and they're all going to the same school and it's daunting as a parent. Did you feel like it was like when they were going to move on to secondary school, or did you think, oh, they'll hit it with flying colours? Or
Well, Rafi was a year above Samina, and he was in Stanley first, and he seemed to be okay. The transition is very different from primary school to high school.
Yeah.
It's massive. Semina, she was looking forward to starting high school, but Semina had autism, so she lacked self-confidence, and she had a few quirky things, and a change of routine would seriously upset her. So
anxious
it was,
and stuff,
yeah,
worried and
so
stuff.
it was a big change, but we'd also been in lockdown as well for so long, so she missed. We went into lockdown in the March of 2020, and they didn't go back to school till September, and cause they started straight into Stanley.
Yeah, so it wasn't sort of
No,
slowly getting there. And,
no.
for you as a parent, you're thinking, I think as everyone in lockdown was like, you just didn't know what was going to happen and stuff. And, you're worrying about what's going to happen but also making that leap from primary school to secondary
Yeah.
school, and like you say, they loved it at primary school, but then it's that daunting, and then you worry for them. And did you have a lot of friends going into the secondary school?
Most of her friends actually left and went to Christ the King, but she did have a couple of friends that did go into Stanley. One of them is one of her friends was a boy who she'd known since reception, and they were super close, the pair of them.
They were best friends.
Oh, they were, so funny. The
Watching
two
them
of
grow from that to
yeah, they were thick as thieves. They were, honestly, they
Because
were.
you're Clare laughing like just.
He was like a little Jack in the Box, wasn't he?
Oh God, yeah.
Her best friend, yeah. He
Yeah,
loved
what-
his dancing, and
That's what did Samina love doing? What was like, what did she enjoy doing? What was her
well,
in school and outside the school?
well, at school, her favourite subject was history. She loved anything to do with history, especially Tudor times. Outside of school, she started with ballet dancing. Then she did a bit of tap. She was horse riding. She was having lessons, with her godmother, into horse riding.
She was into everything.
Yeah, and then it went on to international dance, and that's what she carried on doing. So she was, and then she had private singing lessons.
So she was doing a variety of stuff. Yeah.
She was. Yeah,
Just the typical becoming nearly a teenager, but they want to do everything. I remember my kids, they would just be like football, this, that, and I'm thinking,
yeah.
just stick at one thing, you know what I mean? But they want to sing and dance and,
Yeah, Samina did. There were so many things that she did. Rafi was just a footballer, and that was it.
He just loved football, yeah.
Football mad.
It's mad, isn't it, when you move into secondary school and you want to do all kinds of variety of things and stuff like that. But when did you notice, Rachel, when something wasn't right with Samina?
Well, she hadn't been at Stanley very long, and I noticed a change in her. She seemed very withdrawn, and I used to ask her and say to her, "Is everything all right at school? Is everything okay?" And she'd just say, "Yeah, it's fine." But after into the new year, she was self-harming really bad.
Was Samina? Was you already aware of Samina self-harming, or was it just? Or did you just find out and?
Well, she'd covered it up,
Right.
and so I couldn't see at the time.
We
But
found
then,
her about November, didn't we?
yeah, Yeah.
You know, for you as a family, Rachel, Claire, you know, you start questioning, why have I not seen the signs? And it's any parent, when you're a parent, you think, you know, you could see that she was being withdrawn and stuff. So as a dad, me being a dad, I'd be the same to my daughter or my son.
Yeah, like what's going on?
What's going on? You
Yeah.
see them every day. You see a
You
change
do.
in them. Are they the normal selves? You question yourself as a parent.
You do.
And this is what I'm saying. We're human. We're not programmed robots where you can see that they're hurting or something's up. Because if it was, you take that pain away from them for them. Do you know what I mean? So for you,
Yeah.
that shock, it's like...
And it was like overnight, because she's gone from, you know, a really happy little girl to someone who's withdrawn, someone who's sad, someone who's self-harming. Well, where does that idea for self-harming come in? Where does it come from?
Where's it start? And yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I'm just thinking, like, you know, for it to think that's the only way to deal with whatever she was dealing with, where mum, auntie, you know, friends might be, you're okay or whatever, and hiding it, and then obviously, you know, you become aware of it, and when you become aware of it, you know, it must be a bombshell for you all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And I'm jumping ahead, can I?
Yeah, of course you can. Did you know that's
It's, with you talking about the self-harming, only yesterday, I've been going through her phone, and certain dates throughout January and February, she's taken pictures of herself, and she's absolutely cut herself to bits. There's blood everywhere. There's scars, there's razor marks. They're all over her thighs. They're all over on the inside of her wrists. They're all on the top of her arms. That is the first time I've seen that. Like that yesterday.
And Rachel, what we're going to get into in a minute, what you've just gone to there, is you've only just got the phone back. Is that correct?
Yeah.
After
3.5
3
years.
and a half years. Now, let's be, you know, for what's gone on and what we're going to speak about, you know, our viewers and, you know, our listeners and stuff like that, they're going to be appalled in what we're going to talk about, because the failings, and that's what we're going to get to, and we're going to go through it. But for you, what you've just explained there about the phone, the letters, the notes, should I say?
It was in her notes that said, "Read me."
And you've only received the phone back, what, 4 days ago, 3 days?
No, I received the phone, do you remember exactly when? It was after the inquest. It was quite a while after the inquest.
But you haven't obviously got...
April time.
Yeah. So the phone, it's been damaged on the front. So it's hard to see everything because it's got lines going through it. I can't at the moment. I've got to wait because my legal team are going to download professionally that phone to get everything off it, so we can see it more clearly. But I've been going through it slowly because it is heartbreaking, because I'm seeing pictures of her that I've never seen before. I'm seeing videos that I've never seen before.
And what you've just described.
But I've also seen really happy ones of her. And, you know, but I've also seen some awful ones of her crying. Ones of her talking about what happened to her. And then, of course, to come across that note...
Which you posted a couple of days ago. That's
I posted it as yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Was it? Yeah.
Or was it the day before?
Day before.
Yeah.
I
I was assuming that you just had the phone, and that's when you posted it. But obviously, but
what's heartbreaking about that is I had never ever read that before, and when it came to the inquest, beforehand I had to read the disclosure from Merseyside Police. And in that disclosure, I had to read that she'd left a suicide note. That was the first time I'd ever heard that she'd left a suicide note. So I was reading it in bed and had no idea. But that was not the suicide note that I read in her phone yesterday. That it was a completely different one.
So they downloaded her phone twice. They downloaded her phone to do investigation.
Yeah.
And then after she left us, and this delayed the inquest date for quite some time, the police downloaded her phone again. Not quite sure why they needed to download it again if they'd done it once, so I question whether they'd actually done it the first time. But anyway, that's an aside note. And so all that they downloaded was supposed to be produced as disclosure for the inquest. And that note, which would have appeared in the download, wasn't in the disclosure document.
But
No.
this is why we want to find. This is why we want to. People need to be accountable for that.
I know.
You know, there's so many things that go on where, you know, they get brushed under the carpet. Cases like this shouldn't be going. A 12-year-old young girl has taken her own life.
Yeah.
And if you reflect on what the inquest was about, which it was about, you know, could they have known that Samina would have done what she'd done, and did their failings to act
To prevent her from,
you know, lead Samina to do what she did? So part of it was what's her state of mind.
and get her the help that she
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a note which is heartbreaking for us as a family to read, where she says, I really do think you'd be happier without me. I think that's fundamental to what a coroner needs to see. So the coroner never saw it, and at the end, when the coroner gave her her findings, she said that nobody could have known that Semina would have done what she did. Read everything on her phone.
Yeah.
Look at what Rachel's looking
and like you
at
said,
now.
it's been downloaded twice, and I just find it.
Well,
This is why you don't have trust or belief in, you know, in certain organisations, because you know, it's like, oh yeah, that this is a young child, niece, daughter. You know, someone needs to be brought to, you know what I mean, for this, because like you say there could have been, you know, the safe, like you say, the safeguarding and all that, and you know, certain things of, look, she needs help and stuff like that when it was brought to attention, because all this, what we're going to get into, is Samina was groomed and coerced by an older boy.
yeah,
that,
she
that
was.
right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Absolutely.
And it was just continuous contact from him.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a young girl, or, you know, she's probably thinking it's a friend and stuff like that. But when someone's older, and the grooming process is what they do and how they do it, you know, when she's a young girl, she's still learning life.
She's not street smart.
She's not streetwise.
No.
You know, she's 12 years old. You're not
Baby.
streetwise. You learn. You go through life to learn. She's not had the opportunity to do that. So when all this comes to light with this boy, this was the start of it, was it? That
Yes.
why Samina started self-harming and
Yes.
all the others. Could you want to enlighten us a little bit exactly how it started and how you found out?
Well, Samina told me that the messages started in the summer before she started Stanley.
She was 11 at that point.
Still in primary school.
And it just carried on. And
This is the older boy.
yeah, this is the older boy. And she had told him that she'd never been sexually active. She was a virgin.
She was 11 years of age.
know.
You know what I mean?
I know, but I'm saying that she'd never been sexually active at all, which you wouldn't be at 11.
But this older boy,
Wanted to be her first.
yeah.
But this older boy was friends with Samina's brother. So it was all done in secret.
Social media. Was it all through social media?
Snapchat. The worst one out there.
Yeah.
Disappearing messages. It's so dangerous, that.
That app, we've had people on the podcast and they've said that app out of all of the social media apps is the most, because of obviously what you say,
Yeah.
the messages and stuff like that. People like, you know, send them messages, pictures, videos,
Yeah.
stuff like that, and you know, they've said it's the worst of the worst, that
Yeah.
app.
Samina said that he was asking for naked pictures. Her actual words were, and I've said it so many times over and over and over again, he pecked my head so much that I gave in and I met him. She tried blocking him. That didn't work. Whatever gone on, there was always, he pressured her, and she'd say no, he'd get the ump with her, and then she'd stick by it, and then he'd reverse it and start being nice.
It's a grooming process. That's how
standard grooming process.
It's a process that's they prey on vulnerable people.
And he had a girlfriend. He had that girlfriend. He's still with that girl to this day. So it wasn't, you know, I always think, well, you know, and I've said it before hundreds of times, you know, if he'd have fancied her, okay, because she was a very beautiful girl.
Yeah.
She was stunning, and she looked different from everybody else because she was half Cypriot, you know. If that was the case, all right, you know, not all right, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying all right, but this wasn't the case.
It wasn't from the off. It
wasn't.
It was just control, wasn't it?
You know.
Yeah.
It was pure and simple grooming, and to have sex with her.
You know, to even hear that, you know, she's 11 years of age, and anyone, you know, I think, you know, a couple of years older and whatever, you know, it's still not right. It doesn't sit right. It's not right.
I mean, she's 12 years of age. He had no right to even touch her. He had no right. Anyone has no right to touch a child. You know, and it's clear. The law is clear.
Yeah.
You know, it's an offence. It's
Yeah.
Any penetration of any kind from 12 and under is statutory rape. That is the law.
It's you know, it's horrendous to even think, you know, of what went on, and for Samina to obviously feel like she couldn't, you know, because it's like anything, you tell your mum or your auntie or your brothers or whatever, she's probably scared.
She was.
And like
she
you say,
was.
you know, and you say you can, like we always say to our kids, you can come and tell us, you know, I'll help you. You tell me and I'll help you.
Well, it's funny because in that note that I found, she talks about a friend in that note, and it was at the time who actually persuaded Semina to come and tell me.
Because you need to tell your mum.
Yeah.
And when was it still going on, Rachel? Claire, was it still going on, or did she come and tell you after a friend had obviously...
After the rape had happened, she told me a month later.
I can't even imagine how you felt. You know, the first thing you want to do is take things into your own hands. And
which I did do, didn't I? So...
what happened, Rachel, when you went and confronted?
Well, like I've said before, when I did confront and when I went to the home and confronted her, I rang her first, and she was just so rude of me on the phone.
Was this
the mother?
The mother,
yeah.
Of the individual.
Yeah. So when I went to the house, she was just so disgustingly rude. Honestly, it was just not what I was expecting.
Someone knocks at your door.
Yeah, go on.
Right? Someone knocks at my door, right, and says, my kids have fucking smashed the window, or they smashed someone's car. or done what you've just told me,
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, I wouldn't, you know, this is what I say with your kids. You tell me. If you've done something wrong, tell me, because I can help you. If you
Yeah.
don't tell me, I can't help you. So if you turn up at my door, what you're saying,
Mm.
I'm telling you now, I wouldn't be being rude and I'd be fucking disgusted.
I know.
I'd be disgusted, and
you
I'll be
know,
honest, I'd probably...
You see, this is what I don't understand, because I suppose we judge people on by how we would react in that situation. Because if someone had knocked on my door and said to me that one of my boys had done that to their daughter, I'd be like, oh my God, get in the house now. We will get to the bottom of this. And
Exactly.
if they have, I'll be taking them to the police myself.
But this is the thing.
You'd be
Morals,
disgusted, wouldn't you?
our morals, are what's right and wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You turn up to my door and you say, your son's done this, or your daughter's done this to my, whatever. I'd be like, what? Come in, let's get to the bottom of it. As if they were in the house, you know what I mean? Not like you're saying, listen, we love our kids and we'll always try and protect our kids. But stuff like that, you can't protect. You can't, it's evil, that. You don't have the right to do that.
You've got
No,
to
you don't.
ensure that they've got the right moral compass, haven't you?
You've
And
got
if
to,
you do
from an
that-
early age, you set morals, what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's totally fucking not wrong. It's not right.
Oh, it's
You know, you're knocking at
disgusting.
my door, you're coming in, but it's going to sort it, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And that just not, and from there, did it just escalate then, did it?
Yeah, it did.
But bear in mind, you turning up on her doorstep wasn't the first accusation that they were dealing with, was it?
No, it wasn't.
You know, the first, so
No.
he had a bit of previous as well, so it's, to even, if someone's knocked at your door the first time, second time someone's knocking, something's not fucking right.
Exactly.
Something's not right.
Exactly.
You know, right, listen, we're going to deal with this. We're going to sort, you deal with it in a proper way. You know, you don't want to, your world's shattered as it is. The last thing you want to be doing is rolling around with someone or filling someone in because of what they've done to your daughter. That you know what I mean? And then you've got people just like totally ignorant, blind, no, my son wouldn't do that or whatever. See it all the time. You can fall in shit and come out smelling the roses, and it's not like that. But the second person to be, you know, the second time that something's come about like this.
Well, Samina's found out that there was another victim, and she came to me and told me, and she rang the detective who was in charge of her case, and
Who she thought she could ring,
yeah,
speak to,
yeah,
because you rely on them because they're trying to help you.
yeah. And when he was on loudspeaker, I was there, and he said to her, "Just a minute, Samina," and he went away, and he come back and he said to her, "No, there's nobody else, Samina. It's just you."
Daddy's done this too.
Yeah, it's just you. And yet, when we got to the inquest and he took the stand, when he was questioned over it, he asked his boss what he was supposed to say, because there was another victim.
Yeah, our solicitor asked him to comment on, you know, the fact that he'd gone away to check something. What was it he was checking? And obviously he's in the witness box, he can't lie. So he said, well, I spoke to my boss. My boss told me not to tell Semina about the other victim.
Because the other victim had done an ABE already.
And what an ABE is.
Achieving best evidence.
Mm,
And these are people who you're meant to trust. You know, for me, that's fucking failing straight away.
Oh,
And
there's
then,
more before that.
you know, she's ringing up asking, you know, apparently there's somebody else and he's basically lied.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he lied.
You know, he's
And he's head of he was in charge of the rape unit at Speak.
No, he wasn't.
He
He's only a constable.
No, he was the detective at the rape unit.
Yeah, he was a
specialist
detective. Yeah, he wasn't
detective.
head.
No, okay.
He wasn't the head, he was just a constable.
Yeah.
Yeah, a detective, obviously, but constable. Obviously, there's a sergeant and an inspector, and we met the sergeant and inspector after Samina had left.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And after he was, you know, for you sitting there to hear him say, I was told by someone superior, not to say no, there wasn't. How does that make you feel?
Couldn't believe what I heard.
Well, I don't really. Do you really want me to say?
Is that when you walked out?
I walked out, yeah, because it was either that or flying over and knocking him out.
That's just a normal reaction, though,
Yeah,
Rachel.
I know, and I'm being honest. I wanted to bury him.
You think, you know, you're meant to be helping us as a family.
Yeah.
You know, my
You
daughter.
So you said that to a 12-year-old girl.
There was
Do
nobody.
you know what I mean?
And maybe
All of these things, to me, all of these things that have happened that were failures were all part of Semina leading up to taking her own life.
Yeah.
Can you imagine finding out three years later that he'd lied to her? As a mother, can you imagine how I felt?
The fact that the police lied just feels morally corrupt.
And do you know what, Claire? I'm going to say something here, and it's what's the name of me? If he would have told the truth, and that Samina probably, what she'd been through, knowing that he'd done it to somebody else, maybe she might not have done what she done.
I
know you can think like that, but you can think like that,
no,
you know what
you're
I mean?
correct.
I do think that way.
You're correct, because there is something else that went on. If she'd have known, she wouldn't have taken her life. Because after she died and we made a formal complaint to Merseyside Police, I received an IOPC report. And in that report was a full detail of everything that was written down when they went to the perpetrator's house, what was said. His mother admitted it. He admitted it.
Said it was consensual. And that Samina
And
had
they
admitted to us that it was consensual.
But told Samina,
12.
but told Samina, it's your word against his. Well, hang on. Why didn't you come back and tell her, well, actually, Samina, it's not your word against his. Listen, we don't know how far we can go with this, but we know you're telling the truth. She never got that. She wasn't even told. We were never told.
Didn't even have the decency to come and speak, you know what I mean?
Our solicitor at
Should
the
have still been
inquest.
here.
Our solicitor at the inquest said to him, at any point, did you ever say to Samina, I believe you? And he came out with some rubbish about, I probably said to her, look, you know, we need to find that golden nugget. And she said, did you ever say to Samina, I believe you? He went, no.
Seriously?
And this is a trained detective in a rape unit.
You know, I just so let down hearing this. You know, it's sad, it's sickening, thinking you can trust authority. It just makes it like people think, you know, I just don't trust them. Now then, everyone, sorry for interrupting this episode. Here's a message from our sponsor, Super Resin. They are specialists in resin driveways and flooring across North Wales and the North West. Whether it's a driveway, worktop or flooring, they've got you covered. For 10% off, use the code TGTBTU. Now let's get back to the episode. You know, the failings are just, it's just so scary. And it's taken an inquest to get to the bottom when it's something that's so that you deal with. It should be normal protocol. That's what you do. And he's just like, no, it's
no. And I don't. The inquest to me was not done correctly.
No,
because all the evidence, for instance, like the IOPC report, the serious case review, they were not allowed as evidence. So
you're not allowed to see. You're not.
No, so the coronial process, the coroner's all powerful. They can demand to see whatever they want to see, and they have to be given it. And then the coroner then decides what evidence is going to be included in the inquest. And there are submissions by the interested parties to say, we don't want this evidence included for these reasons. And that's why we had to wait so many years for the inquest, because they constantly argued about the IOPC report and the serious case review. The serious case review is a lessons learned review of all the bodies that were involved to see what they did and whether they could have done something differently and can they learn from it. And we've seen the serious case review and we know there's a lot in there that is relevant or would have been relevant to the inquest. And both the IOPC and the serious case review report, the coroner decided to exclude it and said it wasn't in scope of the inquest. How does evidence that says the perpetrator admitted to statutory rape and was not arrested not be relevant to an inquest?
Why is it not included? And
Yeah,
it just stinks. If I'm going to be honest, that just stinks. It's just.
and we had to fight to actually get to read the serious case review.
Yeah.
But do you not obviously you're not allowed to.
We had to go to London. We had to go to an office. We weren't allowed our phones.
No pen, no paper.
We
Do you have to sign a disclosure on this,
Our solicitor had to decide, sign something to say that she would be, that she would be sort of the mediator of us seeing the report, and that we would be in a controlled environment. We wouldn't be able to take it away.
or take it, all that.
Yeah.
It's
and it would be destroyed after the inquest.
That's
And the Sefton Council.
Borough Council.
Yeah, argued that if that serious case review was published, it would cause unrest in the community of Southport because the perpetrator still lives there and the girls that beat her up.
There were several arguments.
Yeah.
And that was one of them, that it would cause unrest in the community, that it would put the perpetrators'
family at risk.
And family at risk. That there was concern for what impact it'd have on Rachel's mental health. Well, I mean, Rachel could decide on her own mental health, thank you. And also that there was concern that Rachel would put it out on social media.
Oh, yeah.
But
do you know what you're saying about unrest in the community? What about your unrest?
Exactly.
What about your unrest about losing Samina, 12 years of age?
Nobody
and the
was worried
perpetrators
about
still
her.
living in the area, and the people who attacked Semina and who bullied her and who posted the pictures online, the videos online. What about worrying about yous and how yous are feeling? Because it always seems to be never the victim or the family. It's yous are always having to pick the pieces. The perpetrators and the people who do these hideous crimes. It fucking sickens me.
We'd never been a victim.
Throughout the whole process, throughout, Samina and us as a family, from the beginning right up to today, they have been protected. So all the authorities that are involved have protected the perpetrator, protected everybody else, given everything, they got everything that they needed. Us as a family were given nothing. We
have never been treated as victims. Never once. Not even.
And what I mean by that is like, you're a close family, but you're still hurting, and that's what I mean. As
very,
I don't mean victim. I mean victims in the way you've lost a niece, you've lost a daughter. I mean in that way of like, where's what's in for you? The aftercare for yous, and thinking about yous as a family. Because for me, what you're explaining to me there is the protecting, the people who've pushed Samina to take her own life at the age of 12, bullying her, assaulting her, posting online, you know, videos,
Yeah.
you know, and it's pushed her to do what she's done. And like you're saying, Sefton Borough Council and stuff like that. Look at it from the family's perspective. Look, you know, protect yous and, you know, the people who've done this, you know, they should. It's just mind-boggling. It's mind-blowing.
I know. I mean, yet again, she was failed when those videos were put out online.
And this has all come from,
You know,
from this individual.
yeah. And of
Of,
course, though that detective, once again, he asked me to send those videos to him through an email, which I did do. And he didn't do a single thing. And
log
3
them.
weeks
He
later,
didn't log them or follow them up.
No.
3 weeks later, when we actually did speak to him, Samina and I, he said that he asked Samina, had things calmed down? And she said, well, they have a bit, yes. And he said, well, we thought that, you know, with everything calming down, we wouldn't go around and speak to the parents of these girls because we thought it might just stir up more trouble again. Now, when she died and I released those videos, had already been put out on social media previously, I put them out again. Police rang me the same day and asked me,
To remove them.
no, where did I get them?
But they've been, you said, Samina,
Yeah.
or you said sent them to, where did you get them videos?
Yeah.
There again. Just
And
failing. Just total fail.
And accusingly, didn't they? It
Yeah.
was like we'd done something wrong, and we said, well, you've got them.
What was
they-
the reaction when you say that to the officer on the phone? You've actually got these videos.
He was, to be fair, when I spoke to him, I do remember having that conversation. He was quite shocked.
Yeah.
He was shocked.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean we've got them? Is that what, like,
Yeah.
He did, to be fair to him, he then did something about it. But
The officer before though, or whoever's email that's gone to,
Oh,
was that
no.
just left in the inboxes and just fucking forgot about? Because something like that.
They weren't logged, were they?
no, they came back and told us they'd not been logged. And could we confirm when we'd sent them, which started the clock ticking because we sent them in the March. This is the July. Obviously, as you know, they've got 6 months to do something about it. Otherwise, it's statute limitation.
But that fell into that 6
Yeah.
months.
So when we said, well, we sent it in March, the clock started ticking in March, not July.
That's disgusting, isn't it?
It's so.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
What you're dealing with as a family, and then this is just, you're having to deal with this on top. You know, I can't even imagine. You know, you just probably feel you're banging your head,
Yeah.
and you just want answers. Going through one door, bang, through another, bang. It's just, and you're not getting anywhere, and you're thinking, what the, you know.
And we're still being harassed by the perpetrator and his family.
It's that, what, in the street or,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, it's.
It's constant. It's never stopped. Been to court.
CPS messed up.
I mean, it's endless.
Got away with it, walked free, literally got in the car, drove straight to Rachel's house and
Threatened my son outside school.
The perpetrator.
No,
And
his
his
mother.
mother.
This is, I
In
mean,
front of a teacher, in front of several other witnesses, threatened him with names of men who were waiting to kick his head in.
This is a schoolboy.
it's just, you know, what you're saying is like, you know, come on.
I know you
Did-
wouldn't believe it, would you?
I'm
You
just,
I
I'm
know.
blown away. I'm thinking to myself, is this fucking real?
Yeah, it is, all of it.
Is this, you know, what you're having to deal with, you know, and then now you're being verbally, you know, attacked, you know.
That's been constant throughout. Online,
Yeah.
the nasty
Even our parents.
posts.
Even your parents.
Yeah, the house got egged.
It's my house. My parents live with me.
Yeah. Just, but
abused
things like
them,
that though, it must be scary for them just to be,
Yeah.
you know, being intimidated and stuff. The dealing with, you know, losing a granddaughter, you know, when you're dealing with losing your daughter and your niece, and it's just relentless.
It is.
I mean,
Relentless.
Rachel and I went through at the hospital losing Samina is, I mean, we've told the story once, haven't we? But it's awful. It really is awful. And if you think that you're dealing with something like that emotionally, you're losing someone, but to have seen her
The way she...
deteriorate over
Oh,
4 days
it's great.
and going from being perfectly okay, saying, can I go home, I feel all right, to waiting to find out whether they're going to amputate her legs while she's in an operating theatre, having had 3 heart attacks.
And this is you. This is all through.
Yeah, and then literally when she left us Saturday morning, by lunchtime, we were being abused on social media.
By the perpetrator and his family, the family.
Well,
By
connections, yeah.
Connections, his girlfriend.
And we've had that ever since.
Why?
So nearly 4 years.
And it's just...
And it'll be 4 years on Sunday that she took the tablets.
Oh yeah, 2 tablets, yeah.
4 years. 4 years.
I've had to give up my career because I've got PTSD from the hospital because
From what you witnessed and what
I
you...
witnessed, because fortunately for Rachel, she's, you know, blocked a lot of it out. But I've got PTSD, mainly from seeing Rachel.
You've been a rock, because as a mother and as an aunt, I can't imagine what you've had to witness after after Samina took her own life, and it was slowly, because of obviously
It was very slow.
because she
Horrific.
took an overdose. Is that right?
Yeah, and there was no antidote for it. It was toxic.
And you don't just go to sleep.
It's slowly.
Yes, it attacks all your organs, and so we were watching everything fail.
So she's in ICU, but she's still talking.
No, she was in high dependency at that point. So she's in high dependency. So we're thinking, okay, she's in high dependency, but
She's going to be, do you think?
she's talking to us normally,
Yeah.
and she's awake, obviously. And so we're thinking, oh, this is a case of waiting for the toxins to go through her system, and then
flushing stuff and
then she's coming home. And nobody was telling us that wouldn't be the case.
No. They told everybody else, though.
Yeah.
So all the people in authority, like the police knew,
Social
services
knew that
the school knew. They all knew she was going to die, but
Never told us.
no, we didn't know. I didn't know.
The first we heard about it was when they put her into an induced coma, and she was moved to ICU, intensive care, and while they moved her, she had a heart attack. So we were obviously not there because we were asked to just go and wait. They brought us in, told us she'd had a heart attack. We had a complete meltdown because obviously that's not what we're expecting. We were told she's going into a coma, so that giving her body a chance to deal with it. And one of the consultants basically said she's going to be okay, she's stable, she's in the best place. She then had another heart attack 20 minutes later, less than that, and they put her on ECMO, highest form of life support. He was going off for a few days. The main consultant never went home for 4 days, but he was going off for a few days, and he says, I'm not back till Tuesday. I might see you then. And we were, what do you mean you might see us? And we then realised what he was saying, and Rachel went, oh, well, you will see us. And I was like,
what does he mean by that, And
well, I suddenly thought, is that what he's saying?
That's the last thing you want to be thinking.
That's the first time we got any inkling that, well, obviously we're looking at him and it is in the worst possible way, on life support, surrounded by machines with her chest open and a machine pumping her heart. So, there's a bit of a clue there, but nobody had actually physically said to us I can't say the word, sorry. She
Mm.
she may go. The only time that there was something was when she was still awake and the consultant was talking to her, and she asked him, was she going to? And he took ages.
She asked him, am I going to die?
And he didn't.
He took ages to not answer, and we couldn't understand Michael Wayne. I was thinking to him, come on, say no.
You're a professional. You need to be, you upfront here and tell us. And she's a 12-year-old girl asking a doctor or consultant, am I going to die? That's fucking heartbreaking, that.
He said to her, some people have died from this. Oh God, I've said the word. Wow. And she said to him, okay, we'll do what you can to save me. Which, if it hadn't been so tragic, would have been funny, because it was atypical Samina, says the most obvious things in the most deadpan way.
And that's what that's how you should remember it, like little things like that. But to say that to a consultant and to not get an answer, and we might see it, that just, to me, it's like, why does everybody else know what's going on and we don't?
No.
It's, and then from there, your worlds fall apart.
Yeah.
I can't.
I think
I don't even know how to.
there's a lot of things that I don't remember. One of the things that I've been remembering just recently, and I think it is affecting me, because obviously I must have put it in the back of my mind and never shut it off and never thought about it. But it's when, on the Saturday night when I came home from the hospital after she'd passed away, the curtains were closed and I closed the bedroom doors, and I was sat there, and I remember thinking, I left on Tuesday night with my daughter, and I've come home and she'll never come home again, and I'm supposed to go to sleep now. And I thought I'd never sleep again for the rest of my life. And that it's like a fear of what you've just witnessed, what you've just seen. That pain is undescribable.
Yeah.
I am not the same person that I was before, and I never will be. That pain, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, to lose a child, full stop.
But in that way. What you're saying there, it's just like, it's heartbreaking. For any parent to lose a child, but how you're explaining, you and Claire, what she was pushed to, she thought that was the only way out.
Yeah.
And then to go into a hospital for 4 days, and then to slowly
and
not come home. I don't even know, as a parent myself, is how you're dealing with it. You've got your sister to, like you say, you blank it all out, and that's your way of probably coping with it. Like, your sister suffers with what she witnessed that day, for them 4 days. Her niece in I just can't even begin to picture that. You know what I mean? Because it's heartbreaking. I'm upset at even what you're explaining to me. But for you as a family, what you're dealing with, on top of losing your beautiful daughter, beautiful niece, to deal with all this, and then you've got people failing you.
No.
This is why I thought, wow, I've followed it for so long, and I thought, that there are other families out there who are going through what Samina was going through, and people, as parents, you know, don't know what to do. The children might be self-harming or whatever, but what you've just explained to me, people can be so cruel,
Very cruel.
and it's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, and you know, that just saying that, you know, you left on Tuesday night and you come home on a Saturday, it's just this. It's just, I just think as a mother, how you deal with that is just I can't even begin to think. Or your day to day, how you all deal with it. You know, like you say, you've got a strong family, and that's probably what gets you through each day and stuff. But just moving forward, and I just don't even know what begin to think how you do move forward. But like you're saying, you want answers, and this is why, you know, we wanted to speak about Semina and what you know, what you, a name will never be forgotten.
No, I won't let it
I know
go.
you won't, and I know you just won't. But the thing, so many failings here. What you're explaining, there's so many failings from the school, from the police authority, from Merseyside Police, social, CAPS, is it?
Cams.
CAMS. People need to be accountable.
They do, yes.
You're dealing with losing your daughter, your niece, and you're dealing with all this shit.
Yeah.
This is just, you think this is you know, a story that's like you wouldn't believe, but it's real life.
It is, yeah.
And a lot of people, that's why we want to try and get it out there, so people, another family don't go through this.
No, I mean, a lot of people, they don't know the truth.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know what's actually gone on. You know, there is so much that's gone on. It needs to be said.
Of course it does. You know, being lied to, being, you know, failings. Like you say, people need to know the truth, and like you say, you know, you're gonna get the truth. You know, it's gonna be out there, and people are gonna start asking questions, and like you say, the Liverpool Echo, I've just picked up again.
Yeah.
You know,
They've been fabulous, haven't they, Rachel?
Yeah, Ben from the Liverpool Echo.
Ben Haslam.
Yeah, he's constantly, you know, from the very beginning, he's reported on Samina, he's followed her story. You know, he always follows my social media. If he sees something, he gives me a ring. Would you like me to, you know, do this for you? He's been a massive support.
You know, and that's what you need. You need people like that. You know,
You
in the public domain, especially.
Yeah.
You know, the local paper. You know what I mean, and stuff. Well, it's in Liverpool and stuff like that. But this needs to be spoken about. It really does, because what you're explaining is just nothing but horrific.
I know. I've collaborated with Lawrence Fox.
Yeah.
And we've made a documentary. It's a 3-hour documentary, 3 parts. It should be released in the next couple of weeks.
And that's obviously, it's about Samina's story and
and it's the head from St. Patrick's speaks, some friends, a family. A brother speaks as well for the first time.
even doing that, Rachel, Clare, with what you're dealing with, it's, you know, it's so hard. You know what I mean?
It's so hard.
Because you're saying justice, or no, you want the failings, you know, looked at, because
I do.
You want to get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean?
How can you trust a police force? How can you trust social services? How can you, the school, how can you put your trust in them when you've seen all of these failings? How? For me, now, if something happened to me, I wouldn't dream of ringing the police, because I know
That's
that
insane.
I've lost.
You've
my-
lost your trust. You've lost your faith
all
in
the
them.
trust
Well, we
is
just-
gone. All faith is gone. Everything is
Because you've
gone.
been failed. And this is why a lot of people don't have trust. They don't have faith in...
I mean, here's an example. You know, when we talked about before about Rafi, you know, when he was threatened outside of school, you know, that made it to the court. And even then, the CPS messed up so badly that they walked away from court. She walked away from court. Now they're compensating us with money because they're sorry that they messed up. I mean,
But that's...
let's
We don't
not-
want money.
You
We
don't
don't
want
want
money.
money.
You want, you know what I mean?
We want
It's-
justice.
Yeah.
We want to be left
And we're
alone
just,
as well.
You know,
You're dealing with... You still are, you're not grieved properly, really. Let me be honest, because what you're telling me, because
that's
you're
the
just being...
question.
You're being all the time, 4 years on, you're still getting hounded. You're still, like, your son's being outside. Just let yous be, let yous grieve, let yous get over, you know, let yous try. You'll never get over losing Samina, by the way.
Never.
But what I'm saying
No.
is, like, let people try and get on with their lives. You'll never get over Samina.
No,
No, never.
our lives have changed
I mean,
massively.
I asked myself that question, and I say, have I grieved? Well, I won't know, because how do you know if you've grieved or not? That's what I say to myself. Have I grieved yet? Because I don't know. How do you know if you've grieved or not? As people say to me, you've not had a chance to grieve because you've had all this going on. When it finishes, you know, you'll be able to grieve. And I'm thinking, how do you know you're grieving? How do you know you're going through grief? It sounds crazy, but I do ask myself these questions. The only thing I can relate to is I can talk about Semina, and I can talk about everything that's happened, and I can talk about the failures, I can talk about her. But what I cannot do is actually sit and actually really think about what happened and how it made me feel at that time.
As well, and
Because
yeah.
when that happens, and it's happened before, the only way I can describe it is there's a fine line between being sane and going insane. And if I think about it, I'm going to go over that line and I'll never come back.
Yeah.
When you cross that.
So I can't sit and actually think about how I was feeling that time, because it's a place I can't go to. It's so dark.
Yeah. I want to scream. I really
Of course you do.
I want to scream. And I just think, no, don't let go. Because when Rachel first said that, I thought, yeah, that's it. That's why I'm not screaming.
Because when I do, I'm not going to stop.
I'm not going to stop. I'm going to go over the edge.
And this is what I mean. It's like you say, I've said, it's what you're dealing with after losing Samina. It's just relentless for you. It's what you're having to put up with. One thing after another, where you're thinking, what the hell? You kept that from us. You kept it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like bang, bang. It's just continuous. And you're trying to grieve. But how do you when you're just getting bumps in the road at every opportunity? You're trying to, right, okay. But then again, you're just human beings. You know, you're not robots. You're not programmed to put a smile on your face. You know what I mean? It's what you're dealing with. It's just, it's so scary. But you know what you're saying about the failings and stuff like that? It was the first head teacher, I believe, that didn't he resign or he left? Was that right?
He left.
He left.
Yeah. He went, to be fair, he went to a kind of promotion job. But,
after all this had...
Yeah, but he quickly went, yeah.
It's, you know, schools, social services.
Well, we sat there at the inquest and heard them saying things, and we thought, no, that's not true, and you know that's not true.
Just complete fabric, just lies.
I mean, in
You had to walk out then as well, didn't you?
I did have to walk out, yeah. But also in the next couple of weeks, I will be in a tribunal hearing for the...
You're giving evidence, aren't you, as a witness?
A witness.
For the whistleblower. He's going through an employment tribunal because he got put on a disciplinary gross misconduct, downgraded to misconduct for whistleblowing the police, because they said that he accessed information that he shouldn't have accessed, something like that. And yeah, the rules around whistleblowing are that you're entitled to do that as long as it's not a data breach, in as much as that data.
You've gained access to
Yeah.
people's personal, whatever. But he wasn't.
So
wasn't that.
he was a safeguarding officer at the school, and he was there when the first victim,
Spoke out.
yeah.
Did she confide in him? Did she or?
Well, she was being bullied.
Bullied.
She was being bullied at the time.
Sorry.
The same people that bullied Semina were bullying her. She was beaten up outside of school. I was led to believe for 2 years I was accused of having an affair
Oh yeah.
with the safeguarding officer who I've never met in my life. I wouldn't know him if I'd
Bumped into
put
him.
him in the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah. But to be fair on that, it was a misunderstanding, wasn't it?
It was a misunderstanding, but it was not made clear at all. But I was led to believe this, and I had to make a statement to the court to say, I've never met this man before in my life. I don't know. I've not had an affair with him. And I had to write, do this statement with my solicitor.
Who made that accusation?
Because he wrote to the coroner.
No, well, he wrote to the coroner, but as a police officer, you have to declare if you've got any connection to people involved in something
In
that you're
certain
dealing
cases
with.
and stuff.
And I know his sister. So he declared that I know his sister and that he knew me when we were at school. And so he said that, and this is the bizarreness of it. He said that he declared that I knew his sister, that when I was 13, 14 years old, I went out with his brother for about 3 weeks. And this is all, I know. And so from that, it all got Chinese whispered into Rachel being in a relationship because someone somewhere, and I know who it was, but I'm not going to name,
Yeah.
said it's clear that PC has a relationship with the Halliwell family, and that got Chinese whispered into Rachel Halliwell, and
Someone's put 10 pence in and it's ended up as
and the
1,000.
relationships turned into a personal relationship, which his poor wife had to think, was he?
Yeah, because when I finally did meet them, his wife, she actually said that, it was put to her that.
Was it?
Yeah.
I must have told you that.
But you know what? You're dealing with all this. It's just like,
Oh, it's endless.
you must be thinking, what else?
I know.
Well, to be fair, his story's bigger than Samina's.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? I don't know. There's a lot of it.
But to think, it's like the failings again. Going back to the failings, it's like get your information and facts right and do your job correctly.
Well, that's because they didn't do the jobs correctly, all of them, and there's all these failings. When it came to the inquest, they were all covering up for each other.
Because it started with one person not doing something, being lazy.
Yeah.
And then somebody covering up for them, and it snowballed from
Domino effect, innit?
Yeah. So that's how it's come to this. And so who suffers? A 12-year-old girl.
Mm.
Because none of them will then hold their hand up and say, do you know what, I made a mistake. And if they'd done that at the start and said to us, we're sorry, we made a mistake, we'd have gone,
But they're not going to...
thank you, okay. At least you've acknowledged it. It won't bring her back. It won't take our pain away. But we're going to go off now and grieve. But instead,
You're just still having to go through.
Instead, they attacked us. First tried to love bomb us, then that didn't work because we could see through it, and then they started attacking us. And then they thought we'd roll over and we wouldn't.
Yeah, well, this is it.
That's it. They've got themselves into this situation now because we've dug our heels in and said no.
Use it in the wrong here,
Yeah,
not us.
yeah.
We're trying to deal with,
We're not.
you know.
Yeah, they even made mistakes even when they brought, when we talked about before about the videos that were sent in of Semina when she was beaten up. When they did actually get round to arresting the girls, they even made mistakes with that.
Yeah, one got.
One arrested the wrong girl, or
No.
They arrested. So what they did was they immediately acted when they realised that they hadn't done anything with those videos. Got both girls in the same week. They had two different officers dealing with it. Both girls admitted it. Well, they couldn't not because their faces were on there. And Samina was shouting their names. So there was no way they couldn't admit to it. Both admitted to it. Bearing in mind, both then got charged with the same crime against the same victim. Files went off to the decision maker. One got a decision, and the girl was charged and dealt with, and was dealt with through the youth offending process. And the other one didn't get dealt with until after September. Going back to what I was saying earlier,
6 months.
6 months. It was outside statute limitation. All we got was a letter just saying, time's run out. No, the case is now going to be closed. I rang up. So what does this mean? Knowing full well what it meant. There was quite a bit of embarrassment from people until it went up the chain till I ended up speaking to the inspector. And he said, oh, this is what's happened and there's nothing we can do about it. So I said, well, let's give some context here. You've got same victim, same crime, two perpetrators, both admitted their guilt in the same week. One gets charged, one gets off with it. I said, how are the parents of the girl who got charged going to feel about that? More importantly, I was going to say, more importantly, what were you doing between March and July when we reported the crime? So you didn't do anything for 4 months. So do you want to tell us why you didn't do anything for 4 months? Or do you want to go and rethink when the clock started ticking? Did it start ticking in March or did it start ticking in July? He went, oh, you make some good points. I'll come back to you. A few days later, he came back to me. He says, no, there's nothing we can do about it. It definitely started ticking in March.
They're going to say that though, aren't they? It's just, you know what? This is why we have no faith in, don't get me wrong, there is some good authorities out there or people who care about what they do as a job, but there's some people who just...
We're talking about the system, not the people.
Yeah. The system is, like you say
the system's broken.
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
You'd like to think there's some, but the system's absolutely, it's gone to shite.
But if you look at it even from the inquest, which, by the way, we're not satisfied with that inquest process. You've got 5 interested parties in that inquest. 4 of them are connected to Sefton Council, because you've got Merseyside Police, who are accountable to Sefton Council, as well as Liverpool and everywhere else. You've got Sefton Children's Services, accountable to Sefton Council. You've got the school, which is accountable to Sefton Council. And you've got CAMS, which is accountable to Sefton Council. And you've got a coroner, who's appointed by Sefton Council. I wrote to the Justice Minister and said, can you confirm to me that the whole coronial process is robust enough that they aren't put in a position where they've got conflict of interest? I got this wishy-washy response back. I am absolutely convinced that there is no way that you can be independent if you're being persuaded in legal arguments by 4 related parties to which you're connected.
It's scary when you put it like that.
Yeah.
And it makes what you're saying. You're like, what you just said. I'm like,
I want
You're totally right.
I want the law changed. I want there to be a ruling that says that if there's more than one local authority interested party in any inquest, it's got to be a coroner from a different area.
Yeah.
Now that isn't difficult to do.
Of course it's not.
No.
A different county or a different borough or whatever it is. It's
Then
not.
everybody walks away from that thinking that it's fully independent.
Yeah, it's fair. It's it's not all gonna. We all agree on that. You know what I mean? Because as an individual, if you know what's right, and when you look at that, you're not being persuaded by what you're saying there, or in the old talk or whatever, and they're thinking they all have the same. They're all on the same page. No, it's sort of like you're right there. It should be independent, like you say.
But it's if you look at it objectively, it's not fair on the coroner.
Of course.
Even if the coroner says no, I've got a moral compass that I will be objective in my decision. There's still the ability to influence that, and it's just wrong.
Are you looking to be another inquest? Are you hoping, or can it be reopened, or?
We will be talking to our legal team about what options are open to us. But at the moment, we are very much focused on the next stage, which will be civil proceedings.
Yeah. It's just, it's boggling. It's boggling. I just can't get me head round it. What you're dealing with. You know what I mean? It's so.
I've been in and out of Westminster dealing with MPs, writing to them, meeting them. Why? Surely to goodness that should not be necessary when you're dealing with the loss of a 12-year-old child. People should be wanting
to help you, you know what I mean? And you just seem to be having to do it all on your own.
We've been through 5 Home Secretaries. Sorry, 6 Home Secretaries since we lost Samina.
6.
Yeah.
That is just.
You can't get through to them because of flipping civil servants, but that's a conversation for another time.
Samina, what I know we spoke about. Obviously, she was a funny, beautiful, quirky young girl. Things that stand out for you. What was, for you, Rachel? She was just
A laugh. She had the most infectious laugh.
Did it make you laugh when?
Yes.
Make the whole room laugh.
That laugh. Oh my gosh. And on her phone there's videos of her laughing, and I miss that laugh. I miss her.
Of course, and
you know. But I miss everything about Semina. I couldn't believe that I'd produced something so beautiful, but she was so dark. She had black hair and green eyes, olive skin. She was stunning, absolutely stunning. I was so proud.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was funny, but that laugh.
That's what.
Yeah.
For you, Claire, what was for you?
Well, her laugh. There's 2 things I miss. Well, there's a lot of things I miss. I miss her hair. That sounds crazy.
No, I agree with you on that.
But she had such beautiful hair that you couldn't stop yourself touching it.
Yeah.
And I was always playing with it. And she used to just sit there and just let me do it. And I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm playing with your hair. She'd go, it's okay. But I miss all the things that we've been robbed of.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been her prom in July.
She'd be 16.
Yeah, she'd have been 17 in November. But it would have been her prom. and knowing Samina, oh my gosh.
In a little,
Fleece.
what's the name, buggy?
She would have had to have had the most glamorous,
Dress.
the most. She probably wanted us to fly to New York to get a dress.
I miss
It's
everything that we thought we were going to get. Like getting a wedding dress, looking after her children as Nana Claire. All those things that you sort of think,
yeah,
You take for granted, don't
yeah.
you? You know those things. You know when you have a child, you take for granted that when they finish school, they have the prom, they go off college or working or whatever, and you do think, well, they'll get a boyfriend, they'll get a girlfriend,
Yeah.
or there'll be a wedding, or you think about these things, and you never think that you're not going to have them.
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to know what she'd look like now.
oh God, yeah.
Looking at it, her pictures and the videos, I'm sure to God, she'd be a stunning young lady. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, like a prom and stuff like that coming up, and it's things like that where, that's why I wanted to speak to you, because to obviously raise awareness that it doesn't happen to other families out there, but also that Samina's story is a real story, because what you've
Yeah.
explained, when people watch this and listen to this, they'll think, because this is real life.
It is.
And going back to, how it started, what advice would you give to families out there or parents out there about if they've got concerns, or social media, again, what we spoke about at the very beginning, plays a big part.
I think
What would you do? What would you sort of look at and asking parents to, with the children and stuff with social media and...
No, I would definitely tell every parent, don't let your child go on Snapchat. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous platform
That app
to use.
Yeah.
That app has got to go. I would, as a parent, I think it's serious. Do not let your children use Snapchat.
Yeah.
Because I know someone very well. I mean, I know that there's so much grooming going on that Snapchat. Very, very easily to pretend to be a child, and they're grown men.
Yeah.
And they're grooming girls on there. And it's happening now, today. And there's a lot of it on Snapchat. It's the main, when you see like people who they go after predators.
Yeah.
It's the main platform they
catch them.
They catch them.
Well, funny you say that, because we had people who catch people online on one of our previous episodes, and they catch, they act as if they are someone who they're not, and they go and confront these people. And Snapchat is the one app, they said to us, that is the most horrific app.
Yeah.
That, and with you saying that, and it's just a scary, that kids has got, because every child now from secondary school or whatever has got a phone, has access to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever.
But it's Snapchat and TikTok, isn't it, that these young,
both Chinese owned.
But
both of these apps are, I think that someone else mentioned that too.
It's seriously dangerous, Snapchat.
There's got to be something put in place where
community disruption.
When it's so scary how accessible, and and how people can be someone that they're not. You know what I mean? And it'd be people who do try and groom or whatever can be accountable. That there's a link. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, because there's what's the name, disappearing messages.
Yeah, terrible.
Where they should be able to get them back and whatever. But
well, Snapchat hold them for 30 days and then they delete them, because everything's like digital. It's never deleted. In somehow Snapchat are managing to delete digital records.
Yeah. So for parents, that would be that bit of advice is, look, Snapchat is, is it?
Yeah, and if they are on Snapchat, make sure you know how to
You're,
use it,
you're
because
checking it and stuff like. I
yeah.
mean, obviously, I know you're saying messages disappear and stuff, but or if they're not themselves, and maybe just, you know what I mean. It's just scary that you've got to do that, and let kids be kids. But today,
kids grow up so fast these days.
I think kids today now are just.
When I think about what I was like at that age compared to what they're like,
I don't think we had
it's a different
phones
world.
then, did we? You know what I mean?
No.
It was, you'd go and knock for your mate, or you'd go to the phone box or whatever.
Oh
and,
God, yeah.
Mm.
Phone box.
So for you, Rachel, Claire, family life today, you're still pushing and trying to.
Yeah, I mean, family life is very different. I mean, we're still very, very close, but we've all been damaged. You know, we're all still hurting. And there's this, like, it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Every single day, Now that it's coming up to next week, we all go through it all again. And it's 4 days of hell for us all, reliving it, what happened on that day. I mean, we are moving on, but we haven't got the answers, and we haven't had the justice that we so desperately want for Samina. And I think while that's still going on, I don't think we can actually move on with our lives fully.
Yeah.
The boys are, I think we're all in this together, and it's, I mean, it's very, very difficult, because we do need answers.
Yeah,
we want accountability. I want to see people being held accountable for their mistakes and their failings, because of what you did. This led to my daughter taking her own life.
Yeah.
You get to carry on with your job. You get to carry on. But you were there. Your job was to protect my daughter. I protected her. But you're paid to protect her.
And you failed.
And you failed.
And you're paid by the taxes that we pay.
Like Claire said before, Rachel, grieving, Samina's name will always live on, you know what I mean? But getting answers, getting justice. But also, like you're saying, it's coming up next week to the anniversary, and it's just that for me is just it's so hard to. I can't even imagine how you deal with it on them 4 days, and
that's awful.
I can't even imagine. And you'll all deal with it different ways, and
yeah,
some are stronger than others, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, you just want answers, and you want justice for Samina. And I really hope sooner than later that you do get the answers and the justice, and people are held accountable, because people do need to be held accountable for what they've done.
Yeah.
But listen, I just want to say how brave you both are to agreeing to come on and share your story and speak so openly and tell people things that they didn't know, because people think they know but they don't. And you've opened up and said some really, really deep stuff there that hopefully people might come across this who were involved. I might have a conscience and go, look, I know something, or I didn't do something right, or whatever. Because, like you say, answers are needed, and I really hope you get the answers and you get justice for Samina. I just want to say to the both of you, thank you so much for sharing the good, the bad and the ugly.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.